What up, y'all? This is Michael Miles with the Plot Twist 215, and today I'm giving you a movie review of Oppenheimer. Saw the movie last week, and yeah, I want to give you guys my thoughts on it, and hopefully give you some things, maybe set your expectations in terms of the movie if you plan on seeing it. Y'all know I'm a fan of the Marvel movies, and a lot of stuff I've done in the past in terms of reviews have been around those, with the exception of Creed 3. But really excited about talking about this one because I am a fan of history, specifically history surrounding World War II. And so when I saw the trailer for it and I realized what it was about, kind of giving the backstory behind the development of the atomic bomb, it definitely piqued my interest. And so it got me really excited, and some of my friends really excited about the film. And so checked it out. Definitely excited to talk about it today. And so that's where we at today. But of course, before we get into it, please remember to make sure that you subscribe to the channel and give this video a like if you find it valuable. If it is something that really does do what it's intended to do in terms of setting your expectation for the film. Again, subscribe to the channel, give this a like, hit the notification bell to receive notifications about future videos, and let's get into it. So of course, as I typically do, we're going to start with the box office numbers. So Oppenheimer brought in a little over $82 million on its opening weekend, which is Barbie almost doubled that for that weekend. So it did beat out Oppenheimer on the opening weekend. But nonetheless, it's still been doing really good in the box office. To date, worldwide, the numbers are a little over 565 million that has ranked in worldwide, domestically at 238 million. So it's still making out really well in the theaters. It actually sits at number 7 in terms of highest grossing films for the year thus far at the recording of this video. And actually, matter of fact, this actually is a good time to say this. So this review is going to be a tad different than my other ones. I typically talk about strengths and typically talk about things I liked about the movie and things I did not. This one will be a slightly different. So tune in and you'll see what I mean by that. All right. So first and foremost, things that I really liked about the film, and I think that really added to the strength of it, and I think explain why it did really well. First and foremost is the cast. So the cast is they have an all-star lineup in this film, and I think people noticed that just looking at the trailer. I mean, Robert Downey Jr., Cillian Murphy, who's playing Robert Oppenheimer in this. Florence Pugh, we definitely know her from the whole from her time in Marvel or whatnot, but also she's done a work outside of that. Who's not Emmy nominated, Oscar not nominated. I don't think she won one, but definitely one who was a nominee. Matt Damon, right? It's a ton of people in this film that top-notch actors who just do an awesome job. But here's the thing though about this though, you don't really see this until you actually go and see the film. Is that they had a ton of so you had those actors who were kind of like the headliners, but they also had a ton of familiar faces, and are kind of like people I just didn't know were going to be in it. Like Josh Hartnett. Who else we got? Got a little list up. Got Josh Hartnett, Josh Peck. We got Gary Oldman. Some people you probably didn't necessarily know their names, but you definitely know their faces. And so as the film was going on, I'm seeing all these different people pop up. I'm like, oh, I know he's going. Yo, for real. So it had a lot of those moments for me that I think again, these are all top-notch actors and whatnot. And so it just really added a different element to the film, of course. I think, obviously movies are played by actors, and so the way that the quality of acting that they bring to the roles impact the overall quality of the film. And so you definitely see this in the film in Oppenheimer. And so I think it delivers on that. So to see an all-star lineup, it obviously builds some expectation, and I think that the film really does deliver on that. So if you go to see this, I think you can expect, if you really just appreciate just good acting and just good storytelling through that acting, I think that you will be really pleased with what they were able to produce with this film. So the second thing I really liked about the film, and I think is a strength, is the pacing of the film. It's like one of the movies that what it's leading up to, right? And so I think that the pacing of the film, it wasn't too slow. In my opinion, it wasn't super fast. It didn't just rush into it. It did a really good job of building up, not just kind of getting the bomb was definitely obviously a big part of the film, but they really did a lot of work helping the audience get a feel for Robert Oppenheimer as a person. Right, doing a backstory on him, his relationships, kind of him as a person, him as a one in, I think it was in quantum physics and things like that. Just kind of him in terms of the scientist and just his relationships and things like that. And you really do get a feel for him as a person, both before the development of the bomb and then also afterwards. You see some developments in terms of how he felt about his work after it was actually completed. And so I think they did a really good job of just the overall pacing of the film. It definitely is a pretty on the longer side, but I don't think that takes away from it. They just did a really good job of filling it up with good storytelling. So that gets an A1 for me when it comes to the pacing. And that brings me to the third thing I think was really strong about this film is the development with Robert Oppenheimer, because you definitely see a contrast between when while they were working on the bomb and kind of his just kind of like drive to make sure that they got this thing done, and then almost immediately after it was tested and then they found that everything actually worked. And then you kind of, it's almost like realizing that it's like one of those oh snap moments, almost like what have I kind of done? At least the potential of you definitely get a sense from this film, and I think that they wanted to make sure that the audience realized that he had a sense of, we just really unleashed something that could be potentially really dangerous into the world. And the idea of like whether or not really were governments and things like that are really ready to be able to steward such a power and force such as the atomic bomb, but also the hydrogen bomb is also alluded to in the film as well. And so it really does it makes you, there's almost like a weightiness that you kind of see that he wrestled with after it was developed, and after he kind of realized how this thing was going to be used. And that the world, that is actually leading to now the development of more bombs and things like that. So we kind of realize the implications behind what they actually developed. You definitely see kind of a change of I think they mentioned to him, it's just kind of some moral dilemmas when it came down to that. So he did, I think Cillian Murphy did a really good job of capturing that. Kind of like just that shift, so to speak. And also not just him, but also the entire team, right? There was a lot of excitement around its success, but also they also showed some realistic kind of, I think, shots to give you a sense of that not everyone was, there was kind of questions around like, yo, what did we do? And kind of really questioning the goodness of what they actually did, if that makes sense. So I think they really did a really good job of kind of developing his character in that way as the movie went on. So the next thing that I really liked about the film, and I think added to the strength of the film overall, was the way that it was edited. So it's one of those situations where there's a lot of flashbacks and referring to things that happened in the past. So there's some it's almost like two different parts or three different parts kind of happening at the same time. So you have present day, which is not necessarily 2023, of course, but after everything was happened, after the bomb was created, the war, after post-war situations, where he's being investigated and interrogated, and this whole kind of not trial, but this effort being made to whether to determine whether or not his security clearance would be renewed. And so he's being questioned. Some other witnesses are coming in. People were coming in and being asked questions, but they're being asked questions about things that happened in the past. And so they'll go back into the past and they'll still play out some scenes back then. And so it was really cool how that was edited, but then also different parts, different points, the different visuals of the bomb going off, and it was just really cool kind of way that they did that. Different parts. It's one scene in particular after they actually tested the bomb where he's kind of giving like a speech in celebration of it. But as he's doing that, he's then for the first time again kind of feeling the weight of this and now realizing what this is going to be potentially used for. At the way that it's edited, it kind of adds a whole nother element to kind of give you a peek into his thinking. So yeah, it was really cool the way they did that, and it wasn't kind of what you would necessarily expect. And to give you like a reference point, I think about Creed 3 when like that last scene where they're boxing, but then there's also, at one point they tune out the crowd and they're fighting. All of a sudden you see like prison bars and stuff like that, just really kind of like random things kind of put in there but they still tie into the storyline. And so you see a kind of a similar thing happening with the way that Oppenheimer is edited. So if you're kind of into that kind of thing, kind of the extra kind of elements pointing into, I think you'll like that part of this film as well. So this is the part where I get to what I mentioned earlier, that this review will be a little bit different than it was in the past. Normally I would talk about strengths and things I like, and I'll talk about the weaknesses of the film and things like that. And honestly, for this one, I didn't see too many things that I would classify as weaknesses for the film, as much as it is as side notes. And I think they may be more helpful to kind of describe it like that. It's more so side notes in terms of what you can expect. My first side note would be around, and suggestion would be just to, and this may actually require a second watch, definitely for me. I definitely want to see it again. But in terms of following the different, the dialogues that are happening. There's quite a few times where they may be, because again, there are a lot of characters in the film that are really important, that kind of tie into different parts of it. And so there may be but there's a lot of dialogue that kind of ties into the storyline that just requires just an attentive ear. Listening to different agencies that are referred to, different characters that are referred to, things like that. That if you're good with kind of tracking who's who, it will make keeping up with different dialogues a little easier, if that makes sense. So just in terms of just what you can expect, it's just pay close attention to the dialogue, different people who are referenced and things like that. It would make it a lot easier to kind of follow what's actually happening overall. So again, just a side note, it's just it was kind of hard for me to kind of keep up in that regard. But again, that's why we have, it's 2023, we can watch this when it comes to a streaming service and stuff like that, to kind of pick up on things that we did not miss, things that we did miss, in my case, that I did miss the first time that I saw it. So just keep that in mind. Cool. So the second side note that I will make is, of course, I'll be remiss because this has gotten a lot of attention, are the two sex scenes that are in the film. So it's for me, I'm glad that I knew about them before I went into it. Because it just was helpful to know that, so I knew what to expect and what to when to step out. If you're like me, you just rather not see it. You just kind of like, I'm good. There's the first scene comes up when he pulls up at this party and he meets Jean Tatlock. I think it's Tatlock is the way you pronounce her last name, who's played by Florence Pugh. He meets her for the first time. It's like one of those situations where like they're talking and you kind of know the last thing she says. You already know the next scene they're going to cut immediately to is going to be that, and so that's exactly what happens in the film. And so as I was walking out, I kind of heard it and I was like, okay, this was about to go down. And so the second time is actually probably about like an hour later or so. It was like a while before it actually popped up, but it was a scene where like her name is brought back up in the midst of some interrogation that was happening, and so which became they were in the midst of interrogating him, and because he was tied to her and she was tied to certain ideologies, it didn't make it look good for him, if that makes sense. And so again, first scenes happen, and then it's about a good hour or so, a long time that happened, long time between the two scenes, and then her name is brought back up. That's when you kind of know they're about to cut to it again. So again, just keep that in mind. So, and also I remember hearing something about the explanation behind that. They wanted to kind of put that in there just to emphasize the relationship that they had with one another because of the impact that it had on him, at his character or whatnot, on Robert Oppenheimer. And so when you see the film, she does play a role, but she's not in it a whole lot. There's a lot of movie that happens after her, if that makes sense. So anyway, so the explanation behind that they gave to, I didn't think was the strongest. I understand the relationship and kind of why they needed to depict her, but in terms of the scenes, I didn't really understand the reasoning behind it based on what they gave. And so my understanding is that Christopher Nolan has gotten a lot of criticism around how he's handled the romantic kind of interest between the main character and whoever he likes. For example, would be the Christian Bale Batman and whatnot. So anyway, so it may have just been a situation where he just wanted to respond to that and say, hey, I can go there if I wanted to. So that's that. But anyway, those are kind of the two cues I would say to look out for if you're just trying to not to see all that or whatnot. So, or if you're with your family or with people that's just kind of like, or if you just want to step out, just keep that in mind. So I would definitely pay to see this again. I know I mentioned on the Flash review. If you haven't seen that review, go check it out. But I did mention on that when I said I would not pay to go see the Flash again. I would pay to see this again. I definitely would pay to see this again. I'm not sure which streaming services want to come on. If I have it, I would watch it again for sure. It's definitely one of those movies that is probably going to be Oscar contender. Which is really really good. So yep. So check it out. If you may see it and have different views on it, different takes on it than me, and I'm definitely down for it. Write what you think in the comments. So hopefully you found this helpful in terms of what you can expect if you plan on going to see the movie. Definitely interested to hear your take on it as well. So overall, I would give Oppenheimer. I'm typically give it a 10. But I'm gonna say, I think a 10 maybe shoot. It's up there. It's between a 9.5 and a 10 for me. But I'm gonna give Oppenheimer a 9.5. As a plot twist 2 and 5 score. Borderline 10. It just was a really good movie. It really really was. And I think that if you are really interested in those type of films that kind of cover a lot of history around World War II, I think you would appreciate it maybe more than someone that maybe doesn't. And so it's definitely an awesome film. The cast again, all the things I said about it, I think add to that score. And so or explain why it would get such a high score here on the Plot Twist 215. So this is Michael Miles with another movie review, this time on about Oppenheimer here on the Plot Twist 215. Please do not forget to subscribe to this channel. Please hit the like button if you found this valuable, and the notification bell to receive notifications about future videos. So with that being said, y'all have a great day. Peace.